In a peaceful corner of Oregon, where rows of maple trees line the quiet streets and neighbors greet each other by name, something dark was brewing, something no one suspected. On the morning of April 18, 2019, an emergency call shattered the silence of the suburb. A body was found. 17-year-old Dylan Everett, a high school senior, promising athlete, and beloved by everyone, was dead. At first, it seemed like an overdose, a tragic end to a young life. But as police dug deeper, they unraveled a shocking web of secrets. Dylan had been involved in not one, but 3 separate affairs, all with older married women living on his street. And when the truth came out, it wasn't just reputations that were destroyed, it was lives. What started as seduction became obsession. What started as pleasure became power. And what started as a secret turned into a murder. This is the story of the boy who played with fire and got burned. A story of lust, lies, and a death that shook a community to its core. Stay with me. Dylan Everett wasn't like most kids his age. Sure, he was popular, but not in the typical jock kind of way. He was polite, charming, and made people feel seen, especially the women who felt invisible. He had a job mowing lawns in his neighborhood after school, and that's how it started. He would knock on doors, offer a smile, and slowly, without even trying, capture their attention. There was Laura, 43, a housewife going through a quiet divorce. Then Cynthia, 48, married to a traveling businessman and often home alone. And finally Gwen, 52, the PTA president with a perfectly curated life on the outside. Each woman, at a different stage in her life, saw something in Dylan. Youth, warmth, escape. And Dylan? He saw opportunity, not for money or gain, but for validation, for thrill. Laura was first. Their connection was emotional. She confided in him, trusted him. Their meeting started as conversations on the porch and ended in candlelit evenings when her kids were at their dad's. Cynthia was different, bold, unapologetic. She pursued Dylan aggressively, gifting him designer clothes, leaving notes in his backpack, waiting in her car when he left school. And Gwen was the most dangerous. She never spoke of love, only control. Her power came with a price, and Dylan paid it. He was living 3 lives at once, each woman believing she was the only one, each one spiraling deeper into obsession. And Dylan, he was floating above it all, unaware that the very women who adored him could also destroy him. As the spring days turned into summer, Dylan's life became a maze of secrets and seduction. Each day he was waking up in one woman's arms and falling asleep in another's fantasy. It was exhilarating, dangerous, and completely unsustainable. Laura had grown emotionally dependent. She started texting Dylan every hour, even during his classes. When he didn't reply, she'd show up at his games, his work, even outside his house, just to catch a glimpse of him. She didn't see herself as a mistress. She believed Dylan was in love with her, that he would graduate and move in, that they were soulmates who had simply been born decades apart. Cynthia, meanwhile, became jealous, suspicious. She found a strand of blonde hair on Dylan's hoodie once and assumed he was seeing someone else. She began digging through his social media, asking him indirect questions, offering to buy him a new phone. But really, it was to monitor him. Her gifts became bribes, her affection, possession. Every interaction felt like a transaction Dylan didn't fully understand, until he realized he wasn't in control anymore. And then there was Gwen, cold, calculated Gwen. Unlike the others, she didn't need constant affection. What she needed was dominance. She didn't just want Dylan's time, she wanted his silence. She reminded him of the power imbalance every time they met in her pristine home, where her husband's awards lined the walls. "You speak a word of this," she whispered once, "and I'll make sure you never graduate." Dylan began losing sleep. His grades dropped. Friends noticed his mood swings but chalked it up to stress. No one imagined he was caught in the gravitational pull of 3 women with unresolved pain and dangerously unmet needs. They needed him, desperately, but they didn't want to share. And Dylan, for all his charm and bravado, had no idea how close he was to setting off a chain reaction that would end everything. Because in their eyes, love had turned into obsession. And obsession doesn't like to be betrayed. It was a Sunday afternoon in early August when it all began to unravel. Dylan, overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, forgot to lock his phone. He had left it charging in Cynthia's living room while he was in the shower. She wasn't trying to snoop, not consciously, but the screen lit up. It was a message from Laura. "I miss your arms last night. When can I see you again?" Followed by a heart emoji. Cynthia's world stopped. Her face flushed. Her hands trembled. Her mind raced. She had suspected something, yes. But this was confirmation. Tangible, cruel truth. And worse, it wasn't from a girl his age. It was Laura, the divorcee 4 houses down, the one she always saw gardening with a glass of wine. For a moment, Cynthia didn't know what to do. She stared at the message, then swiped up. She found more. Messages, voice notes, calendar reminders of motel bookings, even a note Dylan had written Gwen, buried deep in his notes app. She was shattered, but she didn't scream, she didn't cry, she plotted. Later that night, Laura received an anonymous letter slipped under her door. "He's not yours. Check his phone. Ask Gwen what he tells her." The letter was unsigned. No handwriting, no trace. But it hit its mark. Laura didn't sleep that night. The next day, she followed Dylan, watched from a distance as he entered Gwen's house. Not once, but twice, in the same day. The mask began to fall off, and Gwen, she too had begun to notice Dylan's shiftiness, how he'd leave mid-conversation, how he suddenly refused to come over when her husband was away. Gwen wasn't stupid. By the time the first week of school rolled around in late August, the 3 women, unknowingly, were watching each other, spying, whispering to neighbors, growing paranoid. And Dylan, he was drowning in quicksand, still thinking he could balance it all, but he had no idea that his 3 secrets were now circling, and one was ready to kill. September 7th, 2019, a night like any other, but beneath the stillness of the suburban air, something was building, a storm, not of thunder, but of secrets. Dylan had agreed to meet Laura that night. Her messages had grown desperate, almost threatening. "We need to talk," she wrote. "I'm not a toy, Dylan." He reluctantly agreed. They met at her house around 7:30 p.m. Laura had prepared tea, candles, soft music, like it was a date. But Dylan wasn't in the mood. He seemed distracted, fidgety, cold. Laura asked if he loved her. He hesitated. That's when she knew. "He's leaving me," she thought. She asked if he was seeing anyone else. He lied. She saw through it. Her hands trembled, her voice cracked. And for the first time, Dylan looked at her not with affection, but pity. That broke her. At 8:45 p.m., Dylan left, or rather escaped. Laura didn't follow, but she did text Cynthia. "You were right. It's not just us." Gwen, too. Cynthia, already on edge, lost it. She grabbed her keys and drove. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to see him, one last time, or maybe confront him. Meanwhile, Gwen was already waiting. Dylan had promised to stop by around 9 p.m. to help move something in the garage. A convenient excuse. Gwen had dressed carefully, sprayed the perfume he once complimented. But when Dylan arrived, he was cold, detached, and worse, distracted by the 24 texts flooding his phone. Gwen asked him directly, "Is there someone else?" He didn't answer. That was answer enough. By 9:20 p.m., things had turned into a shouting match. Gwen was furious. Dylan tried to leave, but she blocked the door. That's when Cynthia arrived. She barged in through the side door Gwen had carelessly left unlocked. She saw the two together. Gwen standing inches from him, her hands clenched. Dylan looking cornered, exhausted. The betrayal, the humiliation, the rage, it boiled inside her. Cynthia screamed. Gwen screamed back. Dylan tried to calm them, but it was too late. Emotions had spiraled far beyond control. In the chaos, Laura appeared at the front door. She too had followed him. But what she saw inside wasn't the boy she loved. It was a scene of betrayal, all 3 women staring at each other, and at him. The yelling became a blur, then a shove, a fall, a sickening crack, head against tile. Silence. Dylan wasn't moving, and three women were left standing in the quiet, staring at the blood seeping into the white floor beneath his head. The first to scream was Laura. Her wail pierced the night, echoing down the suburban street like an alarm of guilt. Cynthia collapsed beside Dylan's body, sobbing, repeating his name like a prayer. Gwen? She just stood there, frozen, face pale, mind numb. None of them had meant to kill him, not truly, not deliberately, but he was dead. By 10 p.m., neighbors had called the police. When officers arrived, they found the three women crying, incoherent, trying to shift blame, trying to make sense of something senseless. At first, all three claimed it had been an accident, that Dylan tripped, hit his head, but the cracks in their stories formed quickly. The paramedics noted bruises, defensive wounds, signs of a struggle. By sunrise, detectives had pieced together a rough timeline. Forensics confirmed the blow to the head had been fatal, and not from a simple fall. There had been a push, and someone had pushed him hard. The investigation gripped the town. Media descended. Headlines screamed, "Teen dead in suburban love triangle," or quadrangle. Each woman told a different version of the night, but two details remained constant. Dylan was at the center of it, and now he was gone. In court, the prosecution described a boy manipulated, yes, but also manipulative in his own right. A boy who played with hearts as if they were toys. But the defense painted him as a victim of loneliness, of emotional abuse by women who should have known better. The jury didn't convict on murder, but they did convict on manslaughter, assault, and obstruction. Gwen was sentenced to 15 years. Cynthia got 10. Laura, whose shove had set it all in motion, received 25 years. Their lives, like Dylan's, were over in a different way. As for the community, never quite recovered. The street where Dylan lived became a symbol, not of crime, but of the quiet dangers we overlook, of desire turned toxic, of adults who crossed lines they swore they'd never cross. And Dylan, his funeral was packed. Friends, coaches, teachers, 3 empty seats in the back, reserved for the women who once claimed to love him. They never showed. This story isn't just about sex or secrets. It's about what happens when loneliness festers, when boundaries blur, and when love becomes obsession. And in that space, between truth and fantasy, sometimes the most dangerous thing is the need to be wanted.